"I'm not perfect," she cried until his touch proved her wrong. The light of Cygnus, once brilliant and life-giving, now pulsed an angry crimson through the reinforced viewport of Helios Station's engineering bay. Nia Vale watched it with the practiced detachment she had cultivated over her 12 years on the station. The star's death throes had become her constant companion, much like the soft hum of her internal systems that only she could hear. "Reactor efficiency down another 2%, she murmured to herself, her slender fingers moving across the holographic display with practiced precision. Each digit moved independently, the synthetic muscle memory flawless even after 18 hours on duty. Commander Marston's voice crackled over the comm. "Vale, our replacement specialist arrives in 30 minutes. Try not to terrify this one like the last 3. Nia didn't respond. She didn't need to remind the station commander that those specialists had been incompetent. Dangerous, even. Her silence was answer enough. When she finally made her way to the docking bay, Nia had covered every inch of her synthetic components with her standard-issue uniform. High collar, long sleeves, gloves, a perfect shield against questions and stares. Her face, mostly human in appearance except for the faint silver tracery along her left jawline, was the only compromise. She'd learned to keep her head tilted slightly, letting her auburn hair fall just so. The shuttle docked with a pneumatic hiss. Through the airlock strode a tall man with broad shoulders and eyes the color of Earth's oceans, something Nia had only seen in historical archives. "Commander Darius Reed," he announced, extending his hand. "Reactor specialist and pilot." Nia looked at the offered hand for a moment too long before taking it. Human contact was rare for her. Nia Vale, lead engineer. His grip was firm, warm. Her sensors registered the exact pressure and temperature. 41.2 kilopascals. 37.1 degrees Celsius. Human. Alive. "You're half synthetic," he said immediately. Without judgment or question in his voice, Nia stiffened, her artificial vertebrae locking into defensive posture. "Is that going to be a problem, Commander?" Darius smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a way her facial analysis subroutine classified as genuine. "Only if you think being fully human is an advantage in this situation. I've read your file. Your enhancements make you the best engineer in 3 systems." "My file is classified," she countered, already walking toward the core sector, forcing him to keep pace. "So was mine. Until someone with your access level decided to read it 10 minutes after my assignment was announced." He matched her stride for stride, seeming unfazed by her cold efficiency. For the first time in months, Nia felt something like embarrassment heat her remaining human cells. "The reactor that keeps us all alive is failing. I needed to know if you were qualified." "And you'll do," she replied curtly, though the truth was his credentials were exceptional. 3 tours navigating the treacherous Vega corridor. 2 commendations for engineering innovations in deep space, if you follow my instructions precisely. The station shuddered suddenly, lights flickering as Cygnus released another solar flare. Nia's balance adjusters compensated instantly, but Darius stumbled slightly. Without thinking, she caught his arm, her gloved hand gripping with precisely calculated force. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Not of who they were, but of what they might understand in each other. "The reactor," she said, releasing him quickly. "It's getting worse." "Then let's not waste time." Darius's voice had lost its casual edge. "Show me what we're dealing with." In the primary control chamber, Nia brought up the schematics, explaining the failing containment field and the unconventional modifications she'd implemented to buy them time. Darius asked sharp, intelligent questions that surprised her. Most humans struggled to keep up with her analytical processes. "Your solution is elegant," he admitted, studying her work. "But it won't hold much longer." "That's why you're here," Nia responded. Fresh perspective. He looked up from the display, his gaze lingering on the silver tracery along her jaw. "Is that all I am?" A fresh set of eyes. Something in his tone made her synthetic heart adjust its rhythm. A minor anomaly she'd have to recalibrate later. "For now, Commander. For now." As they worked through that first day, Nia began to notice things about Darius Reed that her systems couldn't quantify. The way he hummed tunelessly when solving complex equations. How he seemed to sense when the star's radiation was spiking even before the alarms triggered. The respect he showed for her space, never touching her tools without permission. By the time the station's night cycle began, They had developed a tentative working rhythm. Nia found herself reluctant to end their session, though her power cells needed recharging. "We'll continue at 600, she said, shutting down her workstation. Darius nodded, stretching his very human muscles. "I look forward to it, Engineer Vale." As she lay in her quarters later, connected to her charging station, Nia ran a full diagnostic. All systems nominal except for one curious anomaly. Whenever she replayed her interactions with Commander Reed, her sensory processing centers showed increased activity. A malfunction, surely. But for the first time in years, as the light of the dying star filtered through her viewport, Nia Vale wondered what it might be like to feel something more than duty and isolation. 3 weeks into their collaboration, Nia found herself observing Commander Reed with increasing frequency. Darius moved with an efficiency that belied his fully human composition, hands steady even during the station's frequent tremors, mind calculating solutions almost as quickly as her enhanced neural network. "You're staring again," he noted, without looking up from the reactor core schematic they'd modified for the 12th time. "Something on my face, Engineer Vale?" "Analyzing your work pattern," she replied, the lie coming easily. In truth, she'd been watching the way his fingers traced the holographic interface, wondering how those same fingers would feel against her synthetic skin. An inappropriate subroutine she couldn't seem to delete. "You haven't slept in 36 hours. Darius finally looked up, a tired smile crossing his features. "Worried about me?" "Concerned about human error affecting our work," Nia countered, turning back to her console. The containment field lost another 0.5% integrity overnight. The dying star outside flared suddenly, bathing the engineering bay in crimson light. Both of them instinctively looked toward the viewport. Cygnus was beautiful in its death throes, terrible and magnificent. "It reminds me of the fires on Proxima Centauri," Darius said quietly, the first time he'd mentioned his service in the war. "The same color." Nia's databases immediately supplied her with information on the Proxima War. 8 years of brutal conflict, casualty figures in the millions. Darius would have been barely more than a cadet when it started. "You were there?" "Not a question." He nodded, the light making the scar above his right eyebrow more prominent. 3 years. Piloted evacuation shuttles mostly until my final mission. Nia waited, sensing he needed to speak but wouldn't respond to questions. "Reactor breach on a civilian transport. Similar to what we're facing here, actually." His voice remained steady, but his pulse, visible to her enhanced vision, quickened. "We saved most of them." "Not all." Nia found herself moving closer, stopping just short of touching him. "Is that why you requested this assignment?" "A chance to save everyone this time." His eyes met hers, surprise evident. "You really did read my file." "I read between the lines," she admitted. Something shifted between them in that moment, a barrier lowering. "Not completely, but enough. What about you?" he asked. "Your file says you requested permanent assignment here 5 years ago." "No shore leave, no rotation. Why isolate yourself among the stars?" The question threatened territories Nia had cordoned off even from herself. She felt her synthetic components tense, defensive protocols activating. "Stars don't care what you're made of," she finally said, turning back to her work. To her surprise, Darius didn't press. Instead, he stepped beside her at the console, close enough that her sensors registered his body heat. "Fair enough," he said softly, "but for what it's worth, neither do I." The next day brought crisis. A power coupling failed during their attempt to reinforce the containment field, sending cascading failures through 3 subsystems. Alarms blared as Nia and Darius worked in perfect synchrony, moving through the engineering bay like dancers in a precisely choreographed performance. "The manual override won't engage," Darius called out, hands flying over a smoking control panel. Nia made a split-second calculation. "Cover me." Without waiting for his response, she wrenched open an access panel and plunged her hands into the circuitry beneath. Electricity arced through the systems, but she continued working, her synthetic components absorbing voltages that would have killed a human instantly. "Nia!" Darius shouted, horrified. "Stop!" She ignored him, fingers connecting and rerouting pathways until the override engaged. The alarm silenced abruptly as auxiliary power restored the containment field. When she finally withdrew her hands, the synthetic skin covering her right arm had partially melted away, revealing the metallic structure beneath. She quickly pulled her sleeve down, but not before Darius had seen. Their eyes met across the smoky chamber. "You could have been killed," he said, voice tight with something she couldn't identify. "No," she replied simply. "I couldn't." Later, in the quiet of the maintenance bay, Darius found her attempting to repair her damaged arm. Without a word, he took the tools from her hands. "Let me," he said, and it wasn't a request. Nia hesitated, then extended her arm. Synthetic skin peeled back to expose intricate circuitry and metal framework. His fingers were gentle as he worked, more precise than she had expected. "Military medic training," he explained, noting her surprise. "Field repairs on combat synthetics." "I'm not a combat model," Nia said stiffly. His eyes flicked up to hers. "No, you're something far more rare." When he finished, his hand lingered on her repaired arm. "You saved us all today." "I did what I was designed to do," she countered, withdrawing her arm and pulling her sleeve back down. Darius shook his head. "That's not what I saw. I saw someone who made a choice to risk herself." The words struck something deep within her core programming, a resonance she couldn't explain. That night, for the first time in years, Nia didn't run her standard sleep cycle diagnostics. Instead, she accessed memory files she'd long archived. Her creation, her purpose, the accident that had left her half machine, and the rejection that had followed. Outside her viewport, Cygnus flared again, as if in sympathy. The station's systems degraded faster than their models had predicted. 2 months after Darius's arrival, Nia found herself working 20-hour shifts, her synthetic components operating well beyond recommended parameters. "We need to try the modulation sequence," Darius insisted during one particularly tense moment, his normally calm demeanor fraying around the edges. "It's too risky," Nia countered. "The containment field is already unstable, and it'll collapse completely in 3 days if we do nothing," he snapped, running a hand through his dark hair. He hadn't slept in nearly 50 hours. "We're out of safe options, Nia." He'd started using her first name sometime during their second week of crisis management. She'd let it pass, telling herself it was efficient rather than intimate. "Fine," she finally conceded. "But I'll enter the reactor chamber, not you." His eyes narrowed. "Not happening. I can withstand radiation levels that would kill you in minutes," she pointed out, logic irrefutable. "And what happens when your circuits fry? Who repairs you then?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither had voiced aloud. In the weeks they'd worked together, touches had lingered, glances had held, conversations had deepened. But both had maintained the pretense that whatever sparked between them was merely professional respect. "I calculate a 68% chance of success," Nia said finally. "Acceptable odds." Darius stepped closer. "Not to me." Before she could process his meaning, alarms blared throughout the station. Commander Marston's voice cracked over the comm system. "Emergency Protocol Alpha. Core breach imminent. All personnel to evacuation stations." Nia and Darius exchanged a single look of understanding. There would be no evacuation, not with the reactor on the verge of collapse. If it failed, the station would be destroyed, and the resulting shockwave could destabilize Cygnus itself, potentially triggering a premature supernova. They moved in perfect coordination, sealing the engineering section and initiating the emergency containment protocols they'd developed together. Nia's hands flew across the control panels while Darius prepared the modulation device they'd been arguing about moments before. "It's our only chance," he said grimly, already donning the insufficient radiation gear. Nia made her decision in microseconds. As Darius turned to enter the airlock, she delivered a precisely calibrated strike to the nerve cluster at the base of his neck. He collapsed, unconscious but unharmed. "I'm sorry," she whispered, dragging him to safety. Inside the reactor chamber, radiation levels soared beyond human tolerance. Nia worked methodically, her synthetic components already beginning to degrade under the extreme conditions. Warning messages flashed across her visual field. System failure imminent, core temperature exceeding safe limits, catastrophic shutdown probable. She ignored them all, focusing solely on installing the modulation device. Her synthetic skin began to blister and peel away, revealing more of the metallic framework beneath with each passing minute. When the final connection was made, the reactor's chaotic energy patterns began to stabilize. Nia staggered toward the airlock, systems failing rapidly. She managed 3 steps before collapsing. Through dimming optical sensors, she saw the airlock cycling open. Darius, awake now, rushed in despite the danger. The last thing she registered, before emergency shutdown, was his face, determined and fearless as he lifted her into his arms. She awoke in the medical bay, systems rebooting slowly. Darius sat beside her, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, voice hoarse. "You could have been destroyed." Nia's diagnostic subroutines reported extensive damage. More concerning was the fact that her synthetic skin had been almost completely burned away. She lay exposed, metal and circuitry intertwined with flesh, no longer able to hide what she was. "The reactor?" she asked, voice modulator struggling to maintain even tones. "Stable, your solution worked." His hand hovered over hers, hesitating to touch the exposed metal. "You saved everyone." Shame flooded her remaining organic systems, an emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel for years. She turned her face away. "Don't look at me," she whispered. I'm not perfect, I'm not even real." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then, with gentle determination, Darius reached out and turned her face back toward him. His fingers traced the metallic lines across her cheek, touch feather-light but unmistakably deliberate. "You're more real than anyone I've ever met," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Every part of you." Something broke within Nia then, a wall she'd built around her core programming, around the remnants of her humanity. Her synthetic components hummed with unfamiliar energy as tears, actual tears from her remaining organic ducts, slipped down her cheeks, catching on the metal beneath. "They made me to serve," she confessed, words spilling out after years of silence. "To be perfect. When the accident happened, when I became this hybrid thing, they said I was flawed, obsolete." Darius's hand never left her face, his thumb gently wiping away her tears. "Then they were fools. Because what I see is evolution, adaptation, survival." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her sensors. "What I see is beautiful." In that moment, as Cygnus pulsed through the viewport, Nia felt something impossible ignite within her, a bridge forming between machine and woman, between fear and acceptance. Her remaining organic heart beat in sync with her synthetic systems for the first time since her creation. "I don't know how to be this," she whispered. "Whatever I am now." Darius smiled, the expression transforming his tired face. "Neither do I, but I'd like to find out. Together." His lips met hers then, warm against cool metal and synthetic polymer. Nia's systems registered every sensation with perfect clarity, yet somehow the data couldn't capture the meaning of the moment. The first time in her existence when she felt not just functional, but whole. The station's rhythms changed in the weeks following the reactor crisis. Helios had been granted a reprieve, though Cygnus continued its slow, inevitable collapse outside. Within the metal confines of their world, something equally transformative was occurring. Nia stood before the mirror in her quarters, examining her changed form. The medical team had been able to restore some of her synthetic skin, but large portions of her metallic framework remained exposed. Silver traceries across her torso, her left arm almost entirely mechanical, the right side of her face showing the delicate metal latticework beneath. She no longer wore the high-collared uniforms or gloves. There seemed little point in hiding now. The door chimed softly. "Come in," she called, knowing who it would be. Darius entered, carrying a small package. His eyes found hers in the mirror, his expression warming as he approached. "You're beautiful," he said simply, as if stating an irrefutable fact. Nia's lips curved into a small smile. "Your optical processing may need calibration, Commander." He laughed, the sound still new and precious to her audio receptors. "Always the engineer." His hands came to rest on her shoulders. one touching warm flesh, the other cool metal. How are your systems today? Functioning at 83% capacity. The new power coupling you designed has improved efficiency by 12%. She turned to face him, her metal hand coming up to touch his cheek. And how are your fully organic systems, Commander Reed? Better now, he murmured, leaning into her touch. Even after weeks, the novelty of his acceptance, his desire for her true form hadn't faded. I have something for you. He handed her the package. Inside was a small data crystal, antique by current standards. What is it? She asked, running a diagnostic scan automatically. Music from Earth, pre-colonial era. He looked almost shy. I thought we might dance. Nia's processing hesitated. I don't have dancing protocols installed. Good. Darius took the crystal and inserted it into her room's audio system. Soft string-based music filled the space. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. He held out his hand, and after a moment's calculation, she took it. His arm slid around her waist, drawing her close as he began to move. Nia followed, her synthetic components adapting to his rhythm, learning with each step. See? Your body knows what to do, he whispered against her hair. As they moved together in the dim light, Nia's sensors registered every point of contact between them. Pressure, temperature, texture. But beneath the data, something else flowed. Something her creators had never designed her to process. Desire. Her fingers tightened slightly on his shoulder. Darius, she said, her voice modulator catching on his name. He pulled back enough to look into her eyes, recognition dawning. Slowly, giving her time to analyze and decide, he lowered his mouth to hers. This kiss was different from the tentative one they'd shared in medical. Deeper, intent clear in the pressure of his lips. Nia's remaining organic systems flooded with chemicals, creating sensations her synthetic components registered as anomalies. But they weren't errors. They were awakening. Her hands moved to the closure of his uniform, sensors mapping the quickening of his pulse beneath her fingers. She began, uncertain how to express the new protocols activating throughout her system. Tell me, he encouraged, his own breath coming faster. Whatever you want, Nia. To feel everything. With you. His smile then contained both tenderness and heat. I can help with that. Their bodies came together like two systems designed to interface. His wholly human, hers a marvel of integration. Nia discovered that her creators had included sensory receptors throughout her form, dormant until now. Darius touched her with reverence, finding places where metal met flesh with particular attention, as if those junctures were especially sacred. When pleasure built beyond what her systems could process, Nia felt herself overloading, not in malfunction but in transcendence. For the first time, her organic and synthetic components operated in perfect harmony, unified in a moment of complete presence. Afterward, lying in the starlight of the dying sun, Darius traced patterns across her exposed framework. What are you thinking? He asked. Nia considered the question. I'm running 276 simultaneous processes, she admitted. But the primary one is contentment. He smiled against her shoulder. Just contentment? She turned to face him. My creators didn't program me with the language for this. I'm having to adapt. Try, he encouraged. Nia's hand, the one that was more metal than flesh, came up to touch his face. I think I am experiencing what humans call love. It doesn't conform to any algorithmic pattern I understand, but it persists nonetheless. The joy that spread across his face was answer enough, even before he spoke. I love you too, Nia. Every circuit, every cell. Their moment of peace was short-lived. The next morning, Commander Marston summoned them both to his office, his expression grim. This stops now, he said without preamble. Whatever is happening between you two. Darius stiffened beside her. With all due respect, sir, she's station property, Marston cut him off. The synthetic components that keep her functional belong to the corporation. Her assignment here is to maintain critical systems, not to fraternize. Nia felt her temperature regulation systems falter. I am not property, she stated, voice even despite the turbulence in her processors. My service contract applies to your human components only, Marston interrupted. The legal precedent is clear. Your synthetic parts are licensed technology. Darius took a step forward, fury evident in every line of his body. That's barbaric. She's a person, not a machine. She's both, Marston said flatly, and the corporation has invested too much in this station to risk its primary engineer becoming distracted. He turned to Nia. Report to maintenance for a system override. Your emotional subroutines are clearly malfunctioning. Something cold and determined settled in Nia's core processors. No, Marston blinked, clearly unaccustomed to direct refusal. That wasn't a request, Engineer Vale. I am aware, she replied. Nevertheless, my answer remains unchanged. As they left Marston's office, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Cygnus had entered a new phase of destabilization, weeks ahead of their projections. The reactor containment field was once again at risk. Darius took her hand, metal fingers interlaced with flesh. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, we face it together. Nia nodded, certainty flowing through her systems. Together. The situation deteriorated rapidly over the next 72 hours. Cygnus had begun to collapse in on itself, releasing unprecedented radiation levels that threatened to overwhelm Helios Station's shields. The reactor strained under the increased pressure. The modulation device Nia had installed now struggling to maintain stability. In the engineering bay, chaos reigned as technical crews worked frantically to reinforce failing systems. Nia stood at the central console, running simulations faster than any human could process. Darius worked beside her, their movements synchronized despite the tension that surrounded them. Evacuation orders have been issued, he reported grimly after a communication from the bridge. Marston is ordering all non-essential personnel to the escape shuttles. Nia nodded without looking up from her calculations. Logical. The containment field will fail in approximately 43 hours. That includes me, Darius added quietly. Reactor specialists are being reassigned to the evacuation ships. Now she did look up, her systems momentarily pausing. You should go. Survival probability increases by 62% if you leave within the next 6 hours. His expression hardened. I'm not leaving without you. Darius. Don't. He cut her off. Don't give me statistics or probabilities. Give me a solution. Together, remember? Nia hesitated, then opened a secure data channel on her console. There is one possibility I've been developing. The schematics that appeared showed a modified interface between the station's main computer system and the reactor core. Direct neural interface. Darius breathed, understanding immediately. You're proposing to link your systems with the reactor. She nodded. My synthetic components can process the energy fluctuations faster than any computer. I could maintain the containment field manually while the station repositions to a safer orbit. The amount of data, the energy running through your systems. He shook his head. It would fry your neural pathways. Not necessarily, Nia countered. If we can create a buffer, she hesitated. There's a 73% probability of significant damage to my systems, but only a 28% chance of complete failure. Darius's face went pale. That's still too high. There are 142 people still on this station, she said softly. The math is clear. Before he could argue further, the doors to engineering slid open. Commander Marston entered, flanked by security officers. Engineer Vale, he announced formally. You've been designated corporation property. You're to be evacuated immediately to protect the investment. Darius stepped between them. She's not going anywhere. This isn't about your inappropriate attachment, Reed, Marston snapped. This is about salvaging valuable technology. I have developed a solution to stabilize the reactor, Nia interrupted, voice steady. But I require Commander Reed's assistance. Without it, the station will be lost, along with all corporation assets on board. Marston hesitated, clearly torn between corporation protocols and survival. You have 12 hours, he finally decided. After that, you both board evacuation shuttles by force if necessary. He turned to leave, then paused. And Vale? If you're planning something self-sacrificial, remember, your programming includes self-preservation directives that cannot be overridden. After he left, Darius turned to her. Is that true? You can't override your self-preservation? It was, Nia acknowledged. Until recently, understanding dawned on his face. The reactor incident. When you saved me, she nodded. Something changed in my core programming that day. I made a choice that my directive should have prevented. Her eyes met his. I chose something more important than self-preservation. And now you want to do it again. His voice was rough with emotion. Nia, I can't lose you. Then help me create a better solution, she challenged. We have 12 hours. They worked frantically, modifying her interface capabilities, building a buffer system to protect her neural pathways from overload. As the station shuddered around them, Cygnus's death throes growing more violent by the hour, they argued, calculated, and recalibrated. In the final hour, Nia connected herself to the testing apparatus. Buffer efficacy at 64%, she reported. Not ideal but functional. Darius looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. The core temperature projections are still too high. Your systems will overheat within minutes. Nia considered the problem, running thousands of simulations simultaneously. Then understanding bloomed within her processors. The coolant system, she said suddenly. If we reroute it through my synthetic components first. Darius caught on immediately. It could dissipate enough heat to keep your systems operational. He was already modifying the schematics. But Nia, even with this modification, the strain on your neural pathways. I know, she said softly. But the survival probability increases to 87%. His hand stilled on the console. For the station or for you? Both, she answered. If you're there to disconnect me at precisely the right moment. Their eyes met across the workstation, an entire conversation passing between them without words. Finally, he nodded. I'll be there. When Marston and his security team returned, they found the engineering bay transformed. Nia sat at the center of an elaborate web of cables and conduits. Her synthetic components connected directly to the station's primary systems. What is this? Marston demanded. Our solution, Darius answered, not looking up from his preparations. Nia will interface directly with the reactor, stabilizing the containment field long enough for us to reposition the station. Marston's eyes narrowed. That technology belongs to the corporation. You can't risk— I don't belong to anyone, Nia interrupted, her voice carrying a new authority that made everyone in the room fall silent. I am choosing to do this, not because I was programmed to, but because it's right. Something in her tone must have reached even Marston, because after a moment he stepped back. How can we help? The interface initiated with a surge of energy that made the lights throughout the station flicker. Nia gasped as data flooded her systems, the reactor's chaotic patterns suddenly visible to her in ways no diagnostic had ever shown. She could feel the energy pulsing, seeking escape, and with delicate precision, she began to channel it, redirecting and modulating. Through a haze of information, she heard Darius calling coordinates to the navigation team, felt the massive station beginning to move away from the worst of Cygnus's radiation storms. Her temperature rose steadily despite the coolant system, warning messages flashing across her visual field. Time lost meaning as Nia became one with the station's systems. She was everywhere at once, in the reactor core, the shield generators, the life support systems. She could feel the lives aboard Helios as data points, precious packets of information worth preserving at all costs. When her core temperature reached critical levels, she heard Darius's voice as if from very far away. Nia, we've reached the safe zone. You need to disconnect now. She tried to respond, but found she couldn't separate herself from the station's systems. The integration had gone too deep, too fast. I can't, she managed, her voice emerging from every speaker in engineering. The connection. It's become part of my operating system. No. Darius's face appeared before her, though her optical sensors were barely functioning. You promised. Together, remember? With enormous effort, Nia focused her remaining processing power. There is one possibility. The emergency shutdown sequence. Understanding and horror dawned on his face simultaneously. That would wipe your entire system. You'd lose everything, your memories, your personality matrix, everything that makes you you. Not everything, she countered, certainty flowing through her despite the chaos of her failing systems. The emotion subroutines, they're not just programming anymore. They've become integrated with my organic components. Around them, the station stabilized as Helios reached its new orbit, safely distant from Cygnus's most dangerous emissions. Nia had succeeded, but remained trapped in the interface, her systems beginning to fail under the strain. I need you to trust me, she said, her voice growing weaker as systems shut down one by one. Initiate emergency protocol Omega-7. Tears streamed down Darius's face as he entered the command. Come back to me, he whispered. However you can. Just come back. The world went dark as Nia's consciousness dissolved into pure data, scattering throughout the station systems before fading entirely. 3 days later, in the quiet of the medical bay, a soft beep broke the silence. Darius, who hadn't left her side, looked up sharply as Nia's systems began to restart. Her eyes opened slowly, optical sensors adjusting to the light. For a terrible moment, there was no recognition in her gaze. System restart complete, she said, voice flat and mechanical. Awaiting designation and purpose. Darius's heart shattered. He reached for her hand anyway, fingers interlacing with the metal framework that had survived the shutdown. Your name is Nia Vale, he said, voice breaking. And you are loved. Something flickered in her eyes, a spark of connection. Her fingers tightened around his. Darius? She whispered, voice uncertain but unmistakably hers. He couldn't speak, could only nod as fresh tears fell. Slowly, her other hand, the more human one, came up to touch his face. I told you, she said, a smile beginning to form. Some things can't be erased. How much do you remember? He asked when he could finally speak again. Not everything, she admitted. My technical databases are fragmented. I'll need to relearn many things. Her eyes held his. But I remember us. I remember what we are together. Outside the viewport, Cygnus still burned, its light now a safe distance from the relocated station. The star would die eventually, but not today, not tomorrow. They had time. The corporation is sending representatives, Darius told her, not releasing her hand. Marston told them what you did. They're talking about sentience rights, legal personhood for synthetic hybrids. Because of me? She asked, surprised. Because of what you chose, he corrected. No one programmed you to sacrifice yourself. You evolved beyond your coding. That changes everything. Nia considered this, her processors working in new patterns. And us, what happens now? Darius smiled, bringing her hand, metal framework and all, to his lips. Now we figure it out together, day by day. She returned his smile, feeling the unique sensation of joy flowing through both her organic and synthetic systems in perfect harmony. I would like that very much. So would I, he whispered, leaning down to kiss her. As his lips met hers, Nia felt the final piece of herself slot into place. She had been created to serve, designed to be perfect. In finding imperfection, in finding love, she had become something her creators never imagined, truly alive. Outside, Cygnus pulsed, its dying light illuminating two figures embracing against the vast darkness of space. Not human and machine, but something new altogether. Something with the capacity to build bridges across the most impossible divides. Something with the power to create its own dawn, even as stars fell into night. The end.